Pentagon Jr. Well, if we were gonna talk about his brother, it's only right that we mention Pentagon as well, because this mad skeleton ninja is totally unique. His aura, presence, and mystique are one of a kind. Now, WWE don't exactly have the best track record when it comes to protecting such things, of course. Look at Bloody Asuka for one, but they should at least try to make it work, because Penta would be a huge hit if given a chance to work his dark, evil magic. Pretty much everyone knows this guy by now, and his exposure increased to new levels after becoming Impact Wrestling Champion this year and stealing the show versus Kenny Omega at All In. He's a real spectacle act, a guy who gets by primarily on character and aura, though he's no slouch in the ring either, far from it in fact. While his style is very indie-rific, Pentagon's matches are regularly some of the most exciting on the independents and in Impact. See his recent feud with Sami Callihan for proof of Penta's violent delights. Now, things wouldn't get that bloody in WWE, but imagine this crazy bastard's reign of terror over NXT. It would be utterly fantastic, and the fans would surely lap it up until he got called up to the main roster and turned into the Lucha House Party's weird goth mate. Boo hiss. Number 5.
That's what I fear. But you know what? Heading into 2019, you know what we all have to have? Cero miedo. 100.
Cormier. Good old DC is the UFC heavyweight and light heavyweight champion at the moment. He's also damn near 40 years old and probably pretty beaten up. These things are all working against his feasibility in WWE, but we're not actually talking about wrestling here. Cormier has been linked with a potential role in WWE's commentary team when the big Fox TV deal kicks in next October. Rumour has it that the new network want WWE's blue brand to take on a new sport-like feel, and given DC's immense combat sports credibility, he'd certainly help in that regard. He's also a massive wrestling fan, and, as evidenced by his recent UFC promo work, someone who might already be preparing for the transition from real sport to sports entertainment. A tremendous professional and immensely likeable guy, and a decorated mixed martial artist and collegiate wrestler, he'd fit this company like a glove and already has experience working as a broadcaster for the UFC. So while there's no saying he'd make an immediate adaptation to life in WWE, he's very well equipped to do so. And on top of all this, there's also talk that his rumoured fight with Brock Lesnar might well be his last. Number 4, Miesha Tate.
I wouldn't mind DC. Especially in that role. We need better commentators. We do. I get annoyed with some of these other commentators. I just do. We need better ones. I would like to not see Cole for a while. If that's possible.
It would be easy as hell to just fill this list with former women's mixed martial artists, given how quickly they seem to adapt to professional wrestling. Shayna Baszler is quietly having one of the best years in WWE, both in terms of in-ring output and character work, while Ronda Rousey is the most convincing rookie WWE has had since Kurt Angle. If Marina Shafir and Jessamine...
Since Kurt Angle? I wouldn't go that far. And I say I wouldn't go that far because Kurt Angle wasn't legitimately a rookie in 1999. He wasn't. I know that's going to bother a lot of people. I know that's going to hurt some people who didn't know that, but that's the truth. And you can look this up. In 1998, Kurt Angle had a plethora of matches all over the independents. He did. And some developmental territories as well in the WWF. He had a lot. Not a lot, but he had enough in-ring experience by the time he debuted in Survivor Series 1999. He did. What separates him from Ronda is that WrestleMania 34 was Ronda's first wrestling match, period. Survivor Series 1999 was not Kurt Angle's first professional wrestling match. It was not. And Sunday Night Heat, those Heat matches too, those were not his first wrestling matches either. He had plenty in small promotions in 1998. He wrestled basically throughout all of 1998 and most of 99 before he debuted at the Survivor Series. Look it up. He had enough in-ring experience. He may have not been in there with elite level guys. I don't know if Sean Stasiak is an elite level guy anyway, but he wasn't in there with elite level guys, but he had more than enough in-ring experience to not be counted as a rookie by the time he came into the company. So it was his rookie year in the WWE, but it wasn't his rookie year in pro wrestling, unlike it was for Ronda Rousey this year. So who really is the more impressive rookie? I would take Ronda Rousey. I know a lot of you peeps are going to be upset about that, but it is what it is.
Duke work out even half as well as those two, the company will be on to a winner. One of Rousey's greatest career rivals, Tate hung up her MMA gloves in 2016. She's still only 32 years old and was insanely marketable in her own sport. Not only would this carry over to WWE, but the company could lean on her existing relationship and history with Ronda to craft a ready-made storyline, giving Tate an easy in for main roster life. Number 3, Chris.
Like the Japanese stars, I don't think we need any more MMA stars yet. Not yet. I'm waiting to see what they do with Sonya Deville first. Because if they rush and bring Miesha Tate in, I think that somebody's going to have to fall in the background out of the 3. Between her, Shayna Baszler, and Ronda Rousey, somebody's going to have to fall back. While 2 get in the spotlight. Because I don't see all 3 of them being in the spotlight at the same time. One of them will have to fall back. And I honestly can see Shayna being called up next year. Like, real soon. I'd say after WrestleMania soon. Because I could see her dropping the title eventually at the TakeOver before Mania. And I could see her being called up right after. But I want her on SmackDown. I'd like her on SmackDown instead of Raw. Even though I wouldn't... Well, okay. I would pitch this. If you're going to call Shayna up after Mania and put her on Raw, have her traded for somebody. And by that I mean, if you're going to call her up and bring her to Raw, take somebody from Raw who's already on there and put her over on SmackDown. Preferably Sasha Banks or Bayley or even Ember Moon. Yeah.
Jericho. My God, would there be some serious bridges to rebuild here, as you can't imagine Vince McMahon is best pleased with all the wacky stuff Chris Jericho has been up to in 2018. Nonetheless, as he builds his own freelancing empire, Jericho is one of the most buzzworthy wrestlers around at the moment, so why wouldn't WWE try to capitalize on all his buzz? Whether or not Y2J would actually want to come back is another thing entirely. He's got a great gig as a New Japan part-timer, and the cruises are apparently about to become an annual thing. On top of all this, he'd almost certainly want greater control over his destiny than WWE might allow, but he's a smart man who works the industry like no other. If it makes sense to Jericho, he'd probably do it. Number 2, Batista.
Jericho's an all-time great, but I think it's time for him to retire. I know not a lot of people are going to like that, and there are a lot of people who... There's only one person I know on here that has agreed with me that Jericho needs to retire. Chris Jericho needs to retire. He's getting old. He's getting too old for this. And his matches aren't really that exciting to me anymore. I thought he had a great match with Kenny Omega. Who was that? Was it at Dominion? Or was it at Wrestle Kingdom this past year? I think it was at Dominion, right? One of you peeps can correct me whether it was Wrestle Kingdom or Dominion this year. The first match that he had with Kenny Omega. If they had a rematch, I didn't see it. But I'm talking about their first match. Where Jericho was like beating the shit out of one of the ring crews at ringside. He's like just heckling him. But that match is the one I saw, and I enjoyed the match, and it was good for what it was. It was good for the expectations because I didn't expect much because Jericho's old, and way past his prime, and Kenny Omega is pretty much at the end of his prime at this point, damn near. But I almost fell asleep during that match. I'm not joking. I was watching it on my tablet online, and I almost fell asleep during the match. I did. And I didn't almost fall asleep because it was a Japanese crowd, and I'm American, and I'm not used to watching Japanese matches. Like, no. It had nothing to do with that. This is coming from someone who's watched Pride. That old MMA organization, Pride, that became defunct 11 years ago. Yeah, I've watched plenty of Pride events. I don't fall asleep during those. So I'm used to the Japanese crowd. It has nothing to do with that. But I almost fell asleep during Jericho and Kenny Omega's match. I might be the only one in the world that has said that I almost fell asleep during their match. But I did. Jericho's too old. He's way past his prime. He needs to retire. And he's not getting in better shape. And he's not getting better in the ring. What you see out of Jericho now is what you're going to see out of Jericho until he retires. He's not going to get any better. So whatever high-level expectations you have of them, you're selling yourself short. Very much so. And I have no interest in seeing 50-plus-year-old Chris Jericho still wrestling. I don't. I do not. In fact, I don't have any interest in seeing any 50-plus-year-old still wrestling under any circumstances. But we get that a lot anyway in the wrestling business, don't we? So, I don't know. That's just my thing. I would be cool with Jericho retiring. He doesn't have it anymore. All-time great? Not really in my top 10, but doesn't have it anymore.
SmackDown 1000's Evolution reunion bred waves of excitement for a potential WrestleMania match between Triple H and Batista. Sadly, the game's big stupid injury means that may now be off the table, but WWE would still be wise to utilize the animal while he still has the will to fight. He clearly wants to give it one last shot, so let's make it happen. Given that he's 49 years old, hasn't wrestled since 2014, and has a pretty tidy movie career going, Batista probably isn't going to sign full-time. He could, however, be used in a major program leading towards the Showcase of the Immortals. And fellow former Evolution buddy Randy Orton would make great sense as an opponent if Triple H isn't ready, given their past relationship and the Viper's safety-first style. And at number 1...
Same thing with Batista. He's too old, past his prime. Retire. He's had about 2 chances to come back, and he didn't come back. Not to his fault. I remember hearing in an interview, it was either earlier this year or late last year, where he had an interview where they never called him, where Vince and Triple H never called him, and they never offered him anything, and he's just been sitting by the phone waiting for them to call him. And then I think at one point he said he called them, he reached out to them, and they was like, yeah, we'll get back to you when we know, exactly what we want to do. And they haven't gotten back to him since. So I get that, but Batista's done, man. That 2014 run, I believe, was his last shot. Because he was already, 45 at that point? Man, it's too old, man. I don't want to see a washed up shell of his former self, Batista. And I'll hand it to Batista. When he came back in 2014, he was still having great matches. Not great matches, but good to borderline great matches. I remember on SmackDown, he had a pretty damn good match with Sheamus. In his early 2014 comeback, but it's over, man. It's over. Like the fact that Batista expected to get a world title run when he initially came back, to me, that just screams how ridiculous it is when it comes to these guys wanting to try to make a comeback. It's like, you're 45, man. You're old. You're old. That's it. You're old. Like I said with Jericho, I have no interest in seeing a 50-plus-year-old Batista trying to relive his glory days. And I damn sure don't have any interest in seeing him versus Triple H at this point, especially with Triple H's injury. And you want to know why Triple H got hurt at Crown Jewel? You want to know how he got that torn pectoral muscle? Because he's old and shouldn't still be in the ring. And he only wrestles like every few months. He's too old for that. He's too old. Triple H has had like 3 chances to retire, where it made sense for him to just retire. Look, man, when these guys, to me, when these guys put up years and years and years of doing this, it's like when they do retire, I accept it. Like when Edge retired, I know a lot of people didn't accept it, but when Edge retired, I accepted it. Because I was like, okay, he's put in 19 years of professional experience. He's put in 14 in the WWE. Some people would kill to have that type of career. Muhammad Hassan would kill to have that type of career. No pun intended. But, I mean, he had that career. So I was able to move on. I was shocked when he retired, but I was still able to move on. And a lot of people try to put this notion that Edge could have went like another 5 years. No. People forget, Edge only had 1 year left on his contract, and he did not plan on re-signing. He already knew that he was going to be done by 2012. He only had one last feud in him. One. And that was against Christian. He was supposed to feud with Christian over the world title. That was it. And they were supposed to have a match at WrestleMania in Miami when they had Rock Cena 1. And that was going to be it. That was going to be Edge's send-off. He was going to put Christian over and he was going to go retire. That was the plan. And of course that plan fell by the wayside because Edge had to retire a year prior. But that was it. Edge only had one big feud left in him and 1 year left in him. He was not going to go past 2012. So this notion that, all of these great rivalries that Edge missed out on because of his injury, no. The man was going to retire regardless. Regardless. Now, had he not had the neck injury, who knows? But to me, had he not had the neck injury, he would have retired anyway. Because we got to remember, he had an Achilles tendon tear 2 years prior to his retirement, or a year and a half prior to his retirement. And we all know that when any athlete in any sport has an Achilles tear or an ACL tear, they're never the same. They don't wrestle the same. They're a lot slower. And within that last year and a half that Edge wrestled, he was getting a lot slower in the ring. He was not as sharp as he once was. He was not as physical as he once was. He wasn't the same. The man was almost more out of shape than he had been in years. And it all started around 2008 when he started getting out of shape. And allegedly it was due to him, not taking PEDs anymore and the stuff wearing off. But Edge was already done, man. He was already slowing down. And he was nearing 40. So, Edge could have had a great feud match with Seth Rollins. No. He would have had a very mediocre match with Seth Rollins. He would have had a mediocre match with all of these new guys coming up. That's a fact. Father Time, besides Floyd Mayweather and Rocky Marciano and any other undefeated fighter that I'm missing out on, Father Time, with the exception of those guys, Father Time is the only thing that's undefeated. That's a fact, not an opinion.
The Elite. Alright, put your pitchforks away. I know these guys are probably on the verge of doing their own thing with All Elite Wrestling. But because that isn't technically a done deal yet, and their contracts are up in January 2019, WWE could still make an approach. Remember, it's signings WWE must make in 2019, not will make. If there's a chance to sign Cody, Hangman Page, the Young Bucks, and Kenny Omega, WWE should obviously pull the trigger. They're among the most important wrestlers in the world today. Their entrepreneurial spirit knows no bounds, and each is well equipped to be a big success for the biggest promotion on the planet. Concessions would need to be made on both sides, and the level of freedom that the Elite would demand makes this signing even less likely. Still, there's no more powerful group outside WWE at the moment, and if they really want to stifle competition, from Vince McMahon's point of view, signing the Elite is an absolute must.
Oh. Alright, so that was What Culture Wrestling with 10 signings projected that they feel like the WWE must make heading into the coming new year. The Elite, I'm not really big on the Elite, but I am big on Kenny Omega. And I feel like as someone who is, well, not me, but I'm talking about him, as a guy who is approaching his late 30s, this coming year will be do or die. Well, not do or die, but now or never. Kenny Omega must sign with the company next year. I am proclaiming that right now. He must sign with the company next year. If he don't, he probably never will at this point. Because Kenny is really good. But at the rate that he's going, in terms of his matches and his style, if he doesn't sign with the company next year, by like 2020 or 2021, his body is going to be broken. His body is going to be too worn down. And by the time he comes here, by the time he comes to the WWE, he's not going to have the great matches that we want him to have because of the wear and tear that has been done to his body. People forget that wrestling is very physical. And I always look at that. I always look at that aspect. At the end of the day, these guys are athletes, but at the end of the day, like JR once said, the anatomy can only take so much. It can only take so much. That's why it's very important that when you're at the top of your game, when you're in the prime of your career, that you do as much as you can and be as successful as you can, but also train as hard and really keep your body healthy and in shape. Because when you start getting deep into your 30s, that ceiling closes. That window of opportunity closes. You can become mentally better. You can develop the higher IQ and understanding of the sport and the business of professional wrestling, but your body won't be able to keep that same pace as your mentality will. So, let me know what y'all think down below. I'm out.